There are some things you can just watch endlessly. The ruble steadily falling, the Russian military fleet hastily fleeing, this time from Syria, and Putin suddenly waking up in a cold sweat at the mere mention of the word Mom! Putin's dream of seizing Georgia has once again been shattered by a popular protest, just like in Ukraine. And once again, Okurok can't believe that this is possible, that there are countries and peoples who are not afraid to stand up to the authorities and defend their rights. For Putin, this is either fantasy or the work of CIA Satanists. He's used to something completely different. Mr. President! It's astonishing. But after the 2008 war and the invasion by the orcs, who came just short of reaching Tbilisi, bombed Georgian cities, and before that spent 10 years supporting separatists in Abkhazia and Ossetia, a pro-Russian political force called Georgian Dream began to gain popularity in Georgia.
The ruling party Georgian Dream wins the parliamentary elections, receiving more than 54% of the votes according to the results from almost 100% of the polling stations. This is evidenced by preliminary data published on the website of Georgia's Central Election Commission.
This is a pocket organization of the pocket Putin oligarch Ivanishvili, a Russian businessman of Georgian origin. In 2012, his Georgian Dream, which advocates for pragmatic relations with Russia, won the parliamentary elections, possibly because the Dreamers claim to adhere to a course toward Euro integration and NATO. In practice, things turned out rather poorly.
Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze announced that until 2028, the Georgian government is removing the issue of negotiations with the EU on joining the Union from the agenda.
With each passing year, Georgia has been getting sucked deeper and deeper into the mire. In 2022, after the large-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Georgian government refused to impose sanctions against Russia and effectively supported Moscow.
Georgia does not intend to participate in financial and economic sanctions against Russia. This statement was made by the country's prime minister.
Georgia became one of the countries through which the Kremlin's military-industrial complex circumvents sanctions and purchases military and dual-use goods.
For the sanctions, this means that everything that enters Abkhazia, de facto, goes to Russia. That's why this line of demarcation is so important.
This can actually be considered an act of aggression by the Georgian government against Ukraine, the country that was the only one to support them in 2008. We are talking about the aggression of the Georgian government, but not of the Georgian people. The vast majority of Georgians, on the contrary, have clearly expressed their support for Ukrainians. Do you remember how Georgians reacted to the launch of tourist cruises from Russia?
Putin is absolutely, truly, without a doubt, a complete jerk.
An abnormal situation has developed where the authorities are acting against the interests of the people. While the Georgian Yanukovychs are reselling missile components in Moscow, components used to bomb Ukraine, ordinary Georgians are protesting against the aggression and are not shy about expressing their feelings toward Russians.
Well, we know about your bar as the place where you don't let in people who don't sign a certain form if they're Russian. Do you think singling out Russians as a separate category as a nationalist, that's really right? Is it acceptable to deny people entry somewhere based on their nationality?
This five-slide not way, it's an accepted norm around the world that there are visas. That's normal.
The Georgian Party of Regions couldn't help but notice that their pro-Russian policies, to put it mildly, were starting to make the public uneasy. And in order to stay in power, they needed to ignore the opinion of that public. That's when the first dictatorial laws started to appear. Ivanishvili's party tried to push a foreign agents law through parliament. Exactly the same as in Putin's Russia.
Protests outside the parliament. And a brawl inside.
They shouted no to the Russian law.
Georgia rose up and the adoption of the repressive law was postponed. But not for long. Already in August of this year, despite the protests, the law on foreign agents was adopted. The Georgian Dream turned into a Kremlin parody.
On Wednesday, April 17th, the Georgian parliament approved in the first reading the draft law on foreign agents, which, according to the European Union, risks restricting freedom and blocking the country's path to EU membership.
And so, with this baggage, the pro-Russian forces in Georgia came to the parliamentary elections. It was obvious to everyone that they could only win in one case, if the votes were counted by the FSB. And that's exactly what happened. It's hard to call these elections fair and democratic in principle, because Georgian Dream openly threatened voters. Across all of Georgia, posters were put up showing images of destroyed Ukrainian cities with the caption, "If you don't want it to be like in Ukraine, vote for Georgian Dream."
All the banners are done in the same style. On the left, a black and white photo showing Ukraine engulfed in war. On the right, a color image showing Georgia with the slogan, "No to war, choose peace," and the main opposition candidate's numbers crossed out. The street campaign was reinforced by a campaign on social media. The leaders of the Dream, its members and its party activists carried videos of similar content across the internet. These were eagerly shared by trolls and bots, while moderators couldn't keep up with deleting users' angry comments.
So, the pro-Russian party is essentially telling citizens in no uncertain terms, if you don't vote for us, then Russian troops will come, they will kill you, burn your house down, and even take your children away from you and your family. This is outright blackmail. Vote for us, or else our Russian friends will come and kill you. The former Dynamo Kyiv footballer and once a normal person, now one of the leaders of Georgian Dream, Kaka Kaladze, doesn't even try to hide this. Karet Zalebi, Vergebian Rom, Sakartol, Ukrainians Bedi, Argaiziara, Arshevirt and Sanknips. Well... And of course this is absolutely disgusting in and of itself. So what they're saying is that it's the Ukrainians themselves, because of their wrong choices, who are to blame for their homes being destroyed and their loved ones being killed. And the Russians have nothing to do with it. Putin supposedly just wanted pragmatic relations.
Oh my God!
But despite the threats, the Georgians voted for freedom, civilization, and European integration. By a majority, Georgian Dream was sent packing right after the Russian cruise liner. So the Kremlin's cronies switched to Lukashenko mode and counted the votes in their own favor.
We have a lot of experience and practice in holding elections.
The opposition and the current president of Georgia did not recognize the election results, and after them, the European Union also refused to recognize them.
The president of Georgia, Salome Zurabishvili, did not recognize the results of the parliamentary elections. According to the politician, they were totally falsified.
Putin's dreamers took offense and announced that they were freezing integration processes with the EU and NATO until 2028. Within seconds, the streets of Georgian cities were quickly filled with protesters. And then, just as we saw events play out in Kyiv back in 2014, the story begins to unfold here in almost exactly the same way, following a remarkably similar pattern. Take a closer look at what happens next. The Yanukovych government breaks its own promise and rejects European integration. On November 30, Euromaidan begins and the police brutally disperse it.
At about 5:30 in the morning, the police began to peacefully force demonstrators out of Independence Square. Several dozen people were detained.
Exactly 10 years later, the Georgian government breaks its promise about European integration. On November 28, almost to the day, Georgians come out in peaceful protest, and the police brutally disperse them. And please, as always, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our channel right here for more updates and content. After that, just like in Kyiv, even more people take to the streets. And then the fire show begins.
They stormed the presidential administration. A tractor drove up to the office, and unknown aggressive young men in masks appeared.
The harsher the authorities act, the harsher the people's response. Russian intimidation tactics don't work in Georgia. Here, no one is going to line up on their own to get into a police van. Here, no one will just stand around filming with their phones while riot police detain a peaceful protester. Here, no one will let their freedom be taken away. The Georgian. People have already built barricades and have no intention of backing down. Georgian Dream is facing the fate of Yanukovych, maybe even worse.
Stop, please.
If Georgians want to restore their territorial integrity, protect their homes from occupation, and live in a normal country, they need to get rid of the metastases of the Kremlin's pseudo-empire. Especially since it's already falling apart at the seams and coming undone like an old shoe. Right now is a historic opportunity. Moscow won't be able to do anything because it's festering in Ukraine. Don't believe it? If you're not convinced, you can always ask Assad directly to confirm. Yes, it's true the wires really were disconnected over there, just as has been reported by those who witnessed it.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.